So it is cheaper, but I should have brought that to show the comparison. And so, so what I'm basically saying is that Fayette County Dairy Promotion would be open to give the demonstration. I guess at the high school, we promote dairy products, and this is one of the things that we try to do in Fayette County. And so, I don't know, Bob, if you remember the old bulk milk dispensers or not.
I do, we had one at our house.
So basically, it's just a weighted valve that, you know, pinches off the. They're 5-gallon plastic containers of milk, and basically it's dispensed, you know, through a valve, and the weight pinches off the valve. I guess the thoughts is that it tastes better than carton milk, and I just think that it's a really big deal for our kids in general. You know, the other factor is that there's less waste. You don't see milk being thrown away. They take what they want, and that has been a question. I've had it at West Central, I've had it at Starmont, and I think that's been their question, is how do we charge for it? And so I don't know if I quite have the answer for that, but at the same time, I think that it's a very important nutrient in our kids' diet, and I don't know if anybody else knows here, but just recently, the House of Representatives in Washington has passed the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, and it is moving forward into the Senate. So, I mean, as far as I know, we do not have whole milk in the school.
No, currently not allowed to.
Yep, it's all 1% and skim, right?
Yep.
And so, Mayo Clinic out of Rochester is a big time supporter of this, and their research, you know, I can say whatever I want to say, but I guess they've got the facts. So I'm like, it's just that it has been the thing for brain development, bone development, muscle development, the whole development of our kids. So,
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
yep,
I think probably the best way to handle this is, we already have a contract for purchasing milk for
Right.
the rest of the year. So if you could get the information that you have to our superintendent, and then maybe a good time for you to come in would be make a presentation with all the facts and figures when we're about ready to sign our milk contract going for the next year.
okay, there's another thing that I need to bring about. So Country View out of Hawkeye has a route, truck route in northeast Iowa, and WW Homestead out of Waukon also has a truck route in northeast Iowa. They are in the area. So it has gotten into a few places already, and I handed out some literature here at the Starmont School Board about what has been going on up in the state of Minnesota with this. So it's really taken off, the bulk milk. Of course, it is in a lot of colleges right now, the dispensers are. So, yeah, I mean, so that's why I'm here, is if that needs to be talked about and discussed about whether or not I can give that demonstration, you know,
I don't think that'd be a problem, this just isn't the appropriate.
it's all free.
We're limited on open discussion from residents to 3 minutes.
Okay,
And we're really not gonna deal with this.
I'm going way
No,
behind.
I don't wanna chase, I don't
no,
want.
that's fine.
Do you have a card or contact information? Our food service director can reach out to you and we can have further conversation about this.
Okay, yeah, I can write down my name and,
Yeah, if you just leave it on the desk out here,
okay,
someone will reach out to you.
all right.
And
Yeah.
if you wanna be on the agenda before we make that decision for where we purchase our milk for the next year, just let us know and we'll get you on the agenda, then you can come in and it'll be a discussion item we can dig into further at that meeting.
I think this is a big deal that's going on in Washington right now, and I don't know if they're gonna fight over a whole bunch of other things, but this is hopefully something that'll pass, but it hasn't gone through the Senate yet that I know of, so. But, I just thought people needed to be aware of it, and, so, anyway, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I can leave the names of well, I'll start with my name, I guess, but, I mean, as far as, I've got a few names and numbers, if you ever wanna talk to the people at WW Homestead or the people at Country View, I can leave those names and numbers too. And, I'll just leave them out here, but I have talked to your food director, and, I don't know, it's like anything, it's hard to make change sometimes with what you get used to doing, so.
Right.
But it does, it takes a team effort, and, milk's a very perishable item, and, there's responsibility with it, so, like anything, so. I'll leave it at that, and, put these numbers out here, and maybe I can get some more, I gave it to West Central and Starma, I believe, on the comparison between bulk milk and carton milk, and yeah, the savings, so.
That'd be all great information for us when we go make our decision.
All right.
It would be.
You bet,
All right, thanks a lot for coming.
you bet.
Are there any other district residents that would like to make any statements? If not, we'll move on to a presentation of social studies from Mr. and Mrs. Potter.
Sure. It's just me tonight. So I'm Mr. Potter, Jacob Potter, Ole Miss 7th and 6th grade teacher. To start off, I brought a few students to kind of talk about what we've been doing in class lately. Can we start?
Hi, my name is Jackson Shaw, and I'm in 7th grade at the ON Middle School. I currently have social studies with Mrs. Potter. So far this year in social studies, I have learned about what the discipline of social studies is and the skills we need to become successful social scientists. We also learned about being critical consumers and what we need to look at for when determining if food is reliable. We then moved on to learning about our institutions we have around the world, which are social, economic, and political institutions. We also learned about the United Nations, which is an international political organization that connects the world into a global government system. When we studied the UN, we looked into human rights and violations of human rights that are happening in different countries around the world. We are now learning about the effects of COVID around the world. I have enjoyed learning about human rights. I enjoyed it because it made me think about other parts of the world from a different perspective. I am very excited to continue to learn more about social studies in my academic career.
Hi, my name is Samvira and I'm in 6th grade. A really fun project that we did this school year was called the Zombie Apocalypse Project. We used important things like critical thinking and a flexible mind, but it was also really fun. Mr. Potter gave us information saying things like where the zombie apocalypse was starting and what kind of climate the zombie apocalypse like. Then we had to make plans on where a base had to be using that information. Currently, we are working on one of my favorite subjects, which is Greek mythology. To learn about it, we are reading a book called Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson is a really good book to read about that subject because it introduces the different gods and why they were famous for some good things and for some infamous things that they did. It's also super fun to listen to and learn about all the different stories they have. Those are some of my favorite things I've done in social studies this year.
Hi, my name is Peyton Hahn and I'm in 8th grade at the Owen Middle School. This year in social studies, we've been learning about the colonization and the settlers of early American history. We've also been learning about the Boston Massacre and the acts leading up to the Revolutionary War, such as the Boston Tea Party, and where many settlers dumped chests of tea overboard because they were upset about the tea tax. One of my favorite assignments was when we learned about the old world explorers and the routes they took to the new world and drew and labeled a map with that information. Another assignment I really enjoyed was when we made projects such as journal entries, comic strips, and other things to show what we think life would be like as an indentured servant. Did you know Christopher Columbus didn't actually discover America? It was actually Leif Erikson. That was one of the many things we learned in social studies this year.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, those are some of the things we've been working on. Kat and I, Mrs. Potter, have been working hard to raise the rigor for social studies this year. Along with planning the DC trip, we're also working on kind of an advanced social studies class that we're going to propose that will be the groundwork for National History Day. That next year we can hopefully do, that would lead to the kids being able to go and propose research projects and then actually go and present them. You guys have any questions?
Tell us a little bit more about what National History Day is.
So National History Day is it's kind of like a national event. I think that the event for our area would be in West Union. So students would choose a topic. It's usually in the realm of like one bigger idea, and they would actually spend about 6 months researching, creating a project, either like a research paper or a poster, and then they would get to go and show them off at this event.
Mm.
I think it'd be like a really cool thing for the community to see.
It's like a science fair / sports for history.
Right.
It's awesome.
It is, yeah. And we've talked to a couple of students, just kind of feeling it out, and a lot of interest for that so far. So just something we're working on. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, good job. Thank you.
You're okay then?
You are, yep. No, you must stay for the whole 3-hour event.
Well, I think.
He's been here
Is that
before.
Sarah's water bottle, Michelle? Oh, Jackson's never mind. You can leave it. You know, somebody forget.
You want to stay in front there, Jackson?
I like this better, Terry.
Nope.
No, thank you. Move on to number 8, discussion items. Early retirement.
All right, board, sorry, I was distracted for a second. Student enrollment of Oelwein, we predict is going to be declining over the next few years. We have 2 grade levels that are each over 100 as our senior class and our junior class. And we currently are projecting that the kindergarten classes, preschool classes that are coming in will likely be less than 100, probably around 80. So if you do that 2 years in a row, we lose 40 to 50 kids in our overall student enrollment, which will account for anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 annually to our general fund. So the burden of that is trying to figure out how to right size. So we know it's coming, and we know it's a burden that we're going to have to see. You know, the good news is that our money is a year behind, so we don't certify till next year, so the money doesn't trail until the following year. So it isn't until fiscal year 2026 that those effects actually start to take effect. However, the time to start getting serious about it and focusing on it is now. So Michael and I have been studying, what would the impact be of offering an early retirement package? A lot of times districts will use early retirement as an incentive to save money, to save the general fund dollars. The theory is if you can motivate someone who's eligible for retirement in the IPER system, which is the age of 55, then a lot of those folks are maxed out on our salary schedule. They retire and we replace them with someone that's younger and lower on the salary schedule, each time saving the district anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000. So 10 people do that, you save $30,000 or $40,000 a piece. That's your $300,000 or $400,000 that you need to save to offset the costs, or maybe the cost savings that need to happen. We're not really in that position. We feel that we're pretty fiscally sound, and we don't necessarily have a need to motivate teachers to leave to essentially save money. We do have the need to right size. We currently are at 112 certified staff, and just not a hard number, but loosely talking, Michael, I believe that we should probably be somewhere in the 105 to 106 range within the next 2 to 3 years. So you can look at attrition. People will leave. They'll take different jobs, and you just hope that the right people leave, and you can slowly right size the district to get down to the size that we feel we need to be. So that's a kind of a reactionary position. More of an affirmative position is to offer an early retirement package, to put it out there and have a little bit more control over who we think is eligible to leave and who might leave or retire, and then make decisions about right sizing based off of who the folks are that would potentially be eligible for retirement. We currently have 11, correct? 11 individuals on our out of that 112 that have met the IPERS requirement to receive an early retirement package. Early retirement is paid for out of our management fund, which is a direct levy to our local property tax holders. It is one of like the 4 or 5 things that the management fund can specifically fund. It's our most limited levy, but this is one of the tools that the state gives us to offer an incentive to teachers to potentially retire. Many districts offer just a cash payout. So they will say, if you retire this year, we're going to pay you $50,000 or 1 year's salary or $20,000, depending on how much they have in their account. Our district for a long time has offered insurance for up to 10 years or until the applicant turns 65. And the value that has for us is that it offers predictability. So we don't take a lump sum and have to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars in a retirement package. Instead, we can build out that payment, that sum, over the cost of 5 years, 6 years, or in some cases even 10 years. And so it's not as heavy of a lift on an annual basis. We are able to budget those retirements. We're currently paying for people that retired 7, 8 years ago. They're still on our rolls, and we're still paying for their retirement. But it becomes, as time goes on, it becomes less and less of a burden on the management fund. Go ahead, Mike, you want to jump in?
Just to be clear, there's 13 eligible, but 11 would be
under
eligible
our current policy
for hitting the insurance benefit of it. They'd be under 65.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So this is the tool that the board has to offer a package is to manipulate the policy. So this policy is currently in place. It's 807.1, and you'll notice that there are specific dates in here. And so the reason that those dates are important is because if you want to enact or offer a plan, then we have to just update the dates to make it current. So that's kind of the trigger to our employees so that they would be potentially eligible within the scope of the policy. So everything in this policy is kind of the guidelines of what it takes to be eligible for early retirement. So you can see the eligibility and all the constraints that a board would want to put into the policy. You have the authority to do so. So you can see number C, line 3 there, where it lists out certified teacher, counselor, or administrator contracts. They would all be eligible. Some boards don't give administrative packages. They only offer teacher packages. So those are things that you guys have the ability to strike out and to say, we want to fine tune who we think or what we want to allow for eligibility into the retirement. There are some equity things here that are important to look for. So it's important to have 2 readings on this. So once you guys would come to a conclusion, if this is something you wanted to do, we would draft the language, you would approve it, and then we would send it to our attorney. And our attorney would go through it and make sure that it is Loctite, that everything's good, that we're not inadvertently disqualifying anybody or having inadvertent age discrimination or any of those kind of things. And then they would give it back to us and say, all right, this looks good. And then you come back to a second reading, and then once that second reading is in place, then all the dates that we would put in become applicable. Our typical process has been to talk about this in October or November, and then get it to the point where it's ready for passage in December, and or kind of on the ground in January for folks to start making decisions. We have held off having this conversation because of the conversion of board members and wanting to get the new board involved. This is a pretty heavy lift for a new board to kind of start into a policy piece like this, but it's important. It's impactful. It's impacting the future of our district over the next 4 or 5 years. It's important because we're in a teacher shortage, and it's an important decision to balance against the talent and capacity of our staff. That we have 112 people that we've committed to and that we've invested in and we think are good for our kids, and for us to say, well, we want to kind of move some people out and bring some people in. Well, it's a pretty significant decision to make when you're talking about the education of our kids. So it's not without significant weight for you to make a decision on. There's a lot of kind of details in here. There's the benefit. Eligible employees eligible for $670 per month beginning, and then it goes out. So once they sign, they're basically locked into whatever the current rate is, which I think is like
$729 is what it would be if it was last year. Yeah.
There'll be a new rate that we'll get from our health insurance, and so whatever that new rate is in January or February would be the new number, and that would be the number that would get locked in. So if it's somebody that's retiring for 10 years, they're locked in at that rate. So if insurance costs go up over the course of that 10 years, they pay the difference back to the district until they're Medicaid eligible. And then this is the application for them to apply. All right, so that's a lot. Any thoughts, feelings, concerns, emotions, excitement?
I got two.
Go.
Number one, what is the immediacy of having to do this?
Timing is important, I think, is the immediacy. You can only strike so often. There are not a lot of new folks coming into the pool over the next 3 years. So we're pretty much at the max now. So waiting a year, we don't gain a lot other than waiting a year. The value of now versus next year is just time, knowing what we have in front of us, being able to make those decisions earlier than being more reactionary to the situations of our enrollment. That's why I would say, if time was the weight one way or another, I would say that you have the advantage of time now, where in a year you may not. Really more reactionary.
Okay. Second question is, we need to reduce 6 staff positions, but you got 11 eligible. How do you handle it if you've got more people wanting to take early retirement than what you can?
Yeah, the board can set a number. You can say 6 is the number, and you can create protocols of who's in line first, based on years of service to the district or when they turn their applications in, years of service and education overall. There's a lot of mechanisms you can use to kind of lay the groundwork there. The other tool we have at our disposal is that we have a pretty good network of folks within the teaching staff that share kind of their interests, and I think that we have a pretty good idea of those eligible who are serious about considering it. And after tonight, and if the board wants to move forward with this, we would draft language and come back in January for our first reading. I'm pretty confident by that time we would know or have a pretty good idea of who's eligible and or who is really considering taking it. And then we could draft language around that risk of 6 versus 11.
Okay.
Make sense?
Do you know, how many are going to fall off in the next couple of years?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So of those 11, the first one would drop off fiscal year 28, 27 to 28.
So 3 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, 3.5-ish. So, and then another 2 would drop off 28 to 29. So, I mean, if you're getting at what's our cost,
I'm always more looking for what our current cost is and when those drop off.
yeah. So current is for next year we plan on it being 42.6, 42.7, 42,700. The next year it's 32.5, and the next year it's 6,600, and that's the last year with the current crop that's in the early retirement group. 27 is the last.
So there's room in the budget as we go through these years.
Right.
Without changing our levy, or not necessarily levy, but our management fund.
Yeah, overall,
Draw for that.
this 1 year, I think, would be the tightest squeeze. That we would have to maybe manipulate. If the goal of the board is to just, and then a minimum keep tax rates flat in terms of that levy, we would have to squeeze probably the PEPAL fund, which we have capacity to do, to be able to make sure it's flat, to kind of eat this year. But then next year, I think we gain a pretty good amount of room, and then subsequently after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just going off of the contribution that, as it stands right, that 729 figure, if we added in this group and all took it and we were all in, we'd be at about 139,000 of a spend versus the 42.7 number I gave you. So, and it goes, obviously it goes down from there every year. So.
Any other thoughts from the board? Obviously, we can't make decisions tonight, but I suppose, Michael and I will come back to you guys, with policies based on kind of the consensus or your feelings about if this is a good idea or a bad idea. If it's a bad idea or you want to wait or you're not really in favor, too risky, then we just kind of close the book on it and move on. If you think it's worth exercising or learning more or talking more, then we can draft some language and continue to get information for you guys and come back in January with a formal proposal to basically to vote up or down.
Do you need a motion for that?
Nope, just kind of the general feelings of the group. It's just an open discussion.
I'd like to learn more.
Okay.
Yes. I too would like to learn more. Or to discuss it further.
Okay. All right, I think that's all we need. I think if there's interest in learning more and taking and looking at this seriously, then we can make sure we have all the numbers in front of you and get some draft language so you could actually see what it would read like and look like to to make a final informed decision on it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Alright.
We'll move on to B, save and Pepple then. Got a lot of stuff today.
I know. I can move through this one pretty quick. So Michael and I have to start preparing our FY25 budget, and kind of the first thing, one of the easiest wins is our Save and our Pebble funds. They're the easiest revenue to understand and the easiest things to spend money on to understand. These are brick and mortar, technology and buses. So I sent out a survey to the board, and this is kind of the results. So I'm just going to share the results with you guys. I'm going to talk about what kind of our plan is, and then based on feedback or your thoughts tonight, and you may not have a ton after you see the results, then we'll kind of start building out our budget for next year from the presentation tonight. And again, you'll have more say and more vote on all these things as we progress. Every one of the projects in here, you also get a say on. So you could say, well, we're interested in putting field turf on the football field. You're not. So no one take that seriously. But when we come, and I could sit here and say, well, it's going to cost $300,000 and you can afford it. But the bids come in, it's $750,000. And you're going to say, whoa, we did not sign up for that. We didn't budget for that. We don't want to spend money on that. So you always have the final say in terms of executing those contracts. So this is just giving us a direction. So generally speaking, we bring in about $1.6 million a year in SAVE, and we bring in about $500,000 in PEPL. Those are very broad brush. SAVE fluctuates more than the other because it's based on sales tax. So the more things you buy on Amazon for Christmas, the better we do. So shop more on Amazon. When they turned the tax switch on to Amazon, our revenue went up about $150,000 a year that year alone. So PEPL is a local. It's a tax lever that we control. And so depending on how much money we feel we need in that, we can move that number up and down, but we control that a little bit. Of that, almost $1 million goes to pay for the bonds that we used to remodel Wings Park and remodel the high school. Probably that's really smart borrowing at 1.8%.
You're lucky, right?
Oh, I know. About $250,000 of that is fixed on leases and labor that we've already committed to, so we don't really have a lot of decisions. Those are leases that just continue to get approved, and that's kind of locked in. And just of that total, we like to have $750,000 on hand at any given time, in case a water main breaks or something, and we need to fix it. Because right. So this is the colors up there are really weird. Because they're not that way on my computer at all. So you can see this is just a breakdown of that. So the bond being the blue side pretty heavily. The red is restricted. The yellow is what we spend on technology every year. So that's just replacing Chromebooks, MacBooks, and things for kids. The green is what we spend on general repairs. So in a given month, we spend $20,000 to $30,000 fixing heat pumps and HVAC equipment, technology that breaks down, windows that break. I mean, you name it, and we're fixing it, and it costs a lot of money. Transportation is we're always trying to update buses and Suburbans and cars in our fleet. And then that top blue section up there where it says unrestricted, that's really what kind of we get to have a discussion about. It amounts to anywhere from $600,000 to $800,000 a year, and that's kind of, I don't know, it's a lot of fun to try to figure out how you're going to spend that to make an impact on kids. And where can we improve how our schools look and feel? And that's really what, on an annual basis, you guys and we get to have conversations about how do we control that money. So these were the themes that you guys had broad consensus on. So number one, and these are in order, so the highest scores across the board, student tech and devices. And then number 2 was bricks, windows, and roofs. 3 was keeping our mechanical systems upgraded. 4 was our fleet maintenance, so buses and cars. And 5 is the structure of our classrooms. Now, the next slide is not going to shock you. When I had you guys survey of the list of things that we could improve for 25. So this is themes. So the next one is the actual items that you were considering. They almost line up perfectly outside. You guys were not, text kind of already built in, so you guys didn't get to really vote on that. But number 1, parking lot lights. 2 was annual roof replacement, and 3 was annual tuck pointing. And then 4 is transportation and bus replacement. 5 is OMS interior walls, and 6 is OMS flooring. So they almost line up sequentially with the themes that you also discussed and talked about. So pretty much across the board, these were universal. And also helpful, number 1 is, I think, item A on your action plan tonight. And item 4 up there is also on action plan, is to approve a RFP for a new Suburban, is item D. So those are both in there. These are kind of the next middle of the road. A few of you marked them as high priority, but didn't maybe get broad consensus, but they were the next kind of group in terms of averages. So some of you, depending on the concrete projects, probably depending on where you drive or drop your kids off, was also maybe what you saw as burdensome with the concrete, and like, oh, let's fix that pothole. Maybe marked that higher than somewhere else. Parkside new LED lights was a popular one. The weight room flooring, it is bad, by the way, and I think out of life.
You trip over a lot.
Yeah, it's becoming a safety issue. Wrestling mat. We're not in closed session, Mary. Mower replacement, and then lights and curtains in the OMS auditorium, and classroom furniture. So a lot of how things look up there is kind of the next phase. I think that's it. Any thoughts, feelings? Anything that we didn't mention or I didn't ask about that you guys like want to see or talk about further or want us to know about?
So with the student tech devices, did they switch from like certain grade levels don't have the MacBooks? Did they switch because of cost savings?
Yeah, so we've found in the 8 years now that we've had MacBooks that our students are like 98% of the time using Chrome on the MacBooks. So we have an expensive computer that we're spending a lot of money to repair and really only using Chrome. So the switch to a Chromebook costs about half as much, requires less maintenance. We don't quite get the life out of them that we did a MacBook. MacBook we could expect 6 to 7 years. Chromebook we haven't had that long to really test yet, but we're expecting 4 to 5 years out of it. But they cost half as much. So you could replace them half as frequently, but I think that we'll have to replace them less than half frequently, so we will save money on that. Yeah, that really was the cost. I mean, just looking at the overall usage and then cost savings drove that decision. Thoughts or questions? Okay, move on.
Well, if not, we'll move on to the consent.
Oh, we still have one more.
Oh, yes, we do.
I know, it was
All
a
right.
full night. I told the principals not to expect to go home till midnight, so. All right, so there was some questions. Joe had brought it up at a board meeting around some of our club monies and how costs were kind of shared between those. This is terrible, this color up here.
It's pretty.
Way better on my screen. It's hard to see.
Yeah, the words you can see, I guess.
So I've got a kind of a slideshow here to share. Derek and Michael will jump in to add context to any of this, just to kind of let you guys know where we're at, where things are. I'll tell you they're not great, and kind of how some of the decisions that we made in the past 6 months kind of came to be. So this is a really good illustration of our last 6 years with the General Activity Fund. The top line is the overall total. And that's an important aspect to keep in mind because that's what gets reported to you. It's what gets reported on our budget. It's what I look at. It's how we track progress. That's the number that we're kind of continually looking at. And you can see it's relatively flat. We took a dip kind of there before COVID and you know, kind of we're down that COVID year, but then we've kind of come back up, but really fairly steady. And if the story was, we took a hard hit during COVID, yeah, we did. But overall, it's been consistent. The challenge has been the other two lines. And so the orange line is kind of our fund balance. So those are the things that basically pay for our officials, all the equipment we have, our jerseys, all the stuff that make our activities go. And then the light blue line is our club funds. So every single athletic activity and club and co-curricular, so chorus, band, marching band, FFA, DECA, they all, annual. So they all have like a general fund account and then a club account. And the club accounts by code, actually anything in this code, monies must be spent directly on kids, period. And so it drives some decision making in terms of where and how we spend money. But those club accounts are generally fundraised. I think they probably are almost 100% fundraised, most part.
Yeah.
So that's you know, kids are selling stuff. There's FFA selling fruit. DECA's selling advertising, and they do youth tournaments. Yeah, I mean, you guys approve the list of fundraisers every year, and it's longer every single year on the volume of fundraising. And you can see that the fundraising arm has basically captured the loss of what we're seeing in terms of our fund balance. I didn't mention it, but I have it in a slide here to talk about the revenue side of that and why they are the way they are. So keep this picture in mind. I can come back to it if you want to see it again. So how do we get revenue into any of those accounts? How do we generate enough money to have $400,000 in this account? So our event gates, season pass sales, concession stands, marketing and advertising. So I said not yet realized. Those monies have been going in to pay for our video boards and that kind of stuff. Those are now all paid for. And so we do expect or could have some revenue coming into the General Activities Fund on the marketing advertising side to kind of help bolster that. Entry fees into tournaments. So when we host a cross-country tournament, every single team is paying $150, $100 to run at our tournament. And then fundraising, just the clubs are doing on a regular basis. And then they're doing a lot of it, and that's all going into to build that account up. All right, and then how are we spending money? Well, we're spending money on officials. We are spending money on athletic training, a contract with Performance Rehab. We are paying entry fees, so we all those cross-country teams that are paying us to run our cross-country meet, we're turning around and paying them to run at their cross-country meets. We have to pay for Huddle, which is a thousands of dollars a year contract that puts our videos from football games, basketball games online so that other coaches can see it. so they don't have to swap film anymore for scouting each other. And then our uniforms. These are the really big lifts in terms of what we're paying for. And that even in that uniform, we don't even do that alone. Clubs are helping, and the Booster Club are helping with those things. And I should say that there's a lot of help actually in a lot of the other ones too that are getting kind of cost shared amongst different organizations and with the general fund if possible. So every summer, the budget is divided up. So we have the general activities fund, which is kind of over top of everything. Derek oversees that. Before Derek, it was Jamie, and that's kind of like the money that they get to decide where it gets spent to improve our activities, to improve. Something's wears down and we have to replace it. Then from there, the money is subdivided into activity funds. So there's a football activity fund. At the beginning of the year, in the summer, Derek and Michael sit down and say, okay, this is how much money we spent on football last year. We buy so many footballs. We know that we're going to have to pay officials, and we know that we have so many games, and the officials are going to cost so much money, and it's all going to cost this much, and all those different costs come in, and then a lot of our sports are non-revenue generating, so golf, tennis.
Let's start with golf.
Sorry, it's the first one that comes to mind. You don't charge anything to go watch anybody play golf.
That's true, but it's a low cost. But anyways, continue. I didn't mean to get
That's right. Cross country. I mean, you get there's, and some of them we do bring in money, but we lose money. Like our junior high sports, right?
I was like, and a good example is tonight. We had a single JJV girls basketball game. We don't have very many third level games, so we lost money tonight. I paid $120 for officials. We brought in $29 at the concession stand and like $65 at the gate. So we're operating on a loss tonight to find some games for our girls, because otherwise they wouldn't have very many this season. Just an example.
Yep. So the idea is that we have to make a decision, and we build an account for girls basketball. We build an account for boys basketball. We build an account for football, and all those things get a budget. And then we figure out how much from the general activities fund has to fill that silo. How much has to fill this silo? How much has to fill this silo? And we go through and we fill all those silos up so that we can run the activities account for an entire year. And then underneath that are all the club accounts. And we don't make very many decisions at all on how that money comes in and how the money goes out, other than we approve the purchases. So we do have eyeballs on it. Code says, our policy says, once that money hits our bank accounts, it's public money. It belongs to the board, it belongs to the district, and then divvying it back out. We do have control over what that essentially looks like. One avenue, this is the way I look at it, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I think about it as one bank account, because that's how I'm viewing it at the $400,000 level. And when those dollars hit it, they all cohabitate, and they all get mixed up. Our accounting, we do the accounting for clubs, activities, and general activities. So it's our software. So if you go look at our bank account statement, it'll say $435,000. If I didn't say that right now, it says it in the banks or in the board agenda. It's $300-some thousand probably.
Something. Yeah.
But that's the overall budget for the year. So that's what I'm tracking, and the microscopic parts of that are getting tracked by Derek and the coaches and the activities fund folks. So what has happened, because that orange line has continued to go down and down and down and down, we aren't solvent. The activities fund is drowning. We are not bringing enough revenue. We have drained our concession stand fund. It used to be north of $60,000. And we basically just zero it out to pay for, basically, just in your mind, think about we're paying for officials or to run these sports. And it's just continued to go down into a negative spend. So the decision was made last year in the summer through lots of brainstorming of how to figure out, we statutorily have to balance our budget. The general fund can't bail it out. We can't bail it out with save money. We can't bail it out with PEPAL money. We can't take any money from anywhere else and say, we're just gonna write a check from this account and pay it to this account. It all's in there. And we gotta pay our bills. So how do we pay our bills? And we did a lot of brainstorming. And the idea was thrown around was to do some cost sharing. It kind of got labeled as a tax, but there was an attempt made to go to all those different club accounts that have all of that extra cash and money, and that there would be money divided up and shared back into the general activities account to basically balance the budget for the year. And what was that percent?
11.25%.
And that number was basically reverse engineered. It was, this is what we need to fill the silo so that we can balance the budget. And it was divided equally across all club accounts.
To get us to zero on activities. It wasn't to flush the activities with cash. It was to zero it out and pay the bills. That's the bottom line.
All right, so you may be wondering, how did we get here? There's a song. Anybody know it?
Talking Heads.
Talking Heads, thank you. All right. Okay, so in 2017, I became superintendent, and one of my first decisions I made was to end transportation cost sharing. So clubs used to have to pay the transportation department to do anything outside of the season. They were using their club funds to do it, and it was costing them thousands of dollars a year. We were moving money from the club accounts to the general fund to pay for transportation. Our board policy didn't really support that position, and I didn't really like it. I thought it was bad for kids, and so we ended the practice. Well, that's allowed some of those funds to slowly grow over time because they're not cost sharing back to the general fund to pay for transportation. In 2019, well, actually for almost 6 or 7 years, Northeast Iowa Charitable Foundation bought student passes for every single student in the district every single year at $25,000. That is what built up that account so large, so that it was in the $30,000 mark. Is that we just had to save that money over time, and it just built up this capacity. And then when that went away, we never really recovered, and we just have continually lost that every single year. Sorry, we make you sick going back and forth here. We did add $40,000 with ESSER funds in 2021. We've seen a significant reduction in our gate receipts over the last decade. This year was our first time we've ever paid for safety equipment out of the general fund. That was something we talked about in August or September. And we hopefully will continue to do that. The ability to fill needs for coaches has felt tighter because we don't have the money as a district. And so it's forced them to do more fundraising, which they've done. And you can see the results of that in the graph over time is that and good for them, but also maybe not. Like, should they be doing all that fundraising? And should they be having to fill that gap? And should we be asking different questions about what the balance of revenue is? And would we be better to make decisions differently around more of a group share approach to some of the fundraising and building those coffers back up so they were more balanced, so they didn't feel the pressure of doing so much fundraising. In my time here, we've added a significant amount of opportunities, which all cost money. Husky Productions, archery, soccer, Husky Mart's new, Skills USA is coming on board. We've added esports the last couple of years. Girls wrestling. None of those are free to start. They all have startup costs, and generally, junior high, softball, baseball.
That's a huge cost.
Yep, and typically those startup costs come out of the general fund or out of the general activities fund. until they can get going and they have their own club accounts and we start building the capacity that way. So I don't regret any of the decisions we made in terms of that, but they all have consequences, and we are where we are, and we have to start making different decisions around the club sharing stuff. There's conversation around significantly changing how much it costs to get into an event. The number that's getting thrown around is 8 and 5 to go to an event. It's currently 5 and 3. So that's an NICL. It's our conference decision.
8 for varsity, 5 for junior high.
Thank you.
Currently 5 for high school, 3 for middle school.
Thank you.
And that hasn't changed, I don't think. I think they said 15 or 20 years is what that cost has been. And there's other conferences that are at that or higher, like some $10, like you get the Des Moines, Ankeny, Ames area, they're charging $10 for a varsity event.
We've adjusted, we can have a conversation about continuing to adjust season passes. One school of thought is lower the price and sell more, generate revenue, charge more, make more. That's a really tough balance. We switched from Pepsi to Coke to get a better incentive to sell more product. I think we're seeing an impact from that, I hope, in our rebates. We switched from being kind of all over the board with our merchandising to going to Nike in Game 1 because it's revenue generating. We get kickbacks, we get rebates anytime we sell products through Game 1 or through Nike. We get money back to help promote or help buy jerseys.
So there's a choice on that? Because didn't, like girls basketball, their new ones are Under Armour.
That was done
That
before
was already contract. Okay.
July.
Wait a second, what are you talking about?
So that contract
So
was.
they're new today, they were new this year, but they had already purchased
Yes.
them previously. Okay.
Yep. So the agreement, we signed the agreement back in like November,
It's like
December.
year to date.
Yep. But it didn't actually go into effect until July 1. So we are just technically, because it was kind of like this whole long period, we started buying stuff and we were starting to convert over to Nike, and then like nothing really happened, and then all of a sudden we actually saw a rebate check this fall, and I was like, why did it take so long? And they reminded me, it's like, well, we've only been under contract for 3 months. So that we are seeing the impact of those decisions now finally start to come back in. There's a lot of conversation happening at the conference level around online streaming of events. What does that look like as a revenue source? Marketing and sales. Derek is working his tail off trying to figure out a way to get concession revenue up, offering more things.
Those blizzards though.
Yeah. But it's, every little bit that matters and helps. I think I hope the message is that we don't want to be in the business of having to take money from clubs or to do any kind of cost sharing. If there's any fault to go around, I can take fault that we took our eye off the ball and that we became unsolvent in that one funding stream. And it's our job to fix it. I think with all the decisions that we're making with Coke and Nike, with advertising and marketing strategies, I'm leading the charge with the NICL to help talk about GATE and what that looks like. We're kind of all hands in right now of trying to figure out how to fix this. And I genuinely hope that we never have to go back to the clubs and ask for money again. Like, that sucks. And I don't want to do it. But we do have to pay the bills. And the analogy I told the coaches was, you're saving for Cancun, but you don't have enough money in the bank to pay your car payment. You got to pay the car payment, and it comes out of the Cancun fund. It sucks, but you got to do that, and then ultimately you make a decision to figure out how to fix your car payment, so you can put money back in the Cancun fund. And that's just where we are. If the board has other ideas or direction of what to do to help us figure this out, I'm all ears, and I think Derek and Mike are both willing to whatever it takes to do this and fix it and figure it out, we'll do it.
And I just throw in Michael and I really dove into the purchases made in the last year with Jamie, and there was nothing superfluous. Like the things that were purchased were fundraised. Like we got Moxie, and that you wrote a grant for that, correct? The new score, we had a new scorers table. The other one was Shot, but that was purchased with the Booster Club, and then I think Coke helped
Coke
pay for
contract.
that. Those are our two major outside purchases other than officials and uniforms last year.
And then basic equipment like basketballs.
Well, and even this year,
Yeah.
this year, I'm telling coaches, you need to pay for that out of your club, because the coaches are all aware of where our general activities is, and I told them at the beginning of the year, we're gonna need help. If we are trying to get this budgeted, balanced back, like, you know, we're gonna need your help to do that. We can't afford to buy footballs and basketballs and uniforms and all of these things out of the same fund when it's in the condition that it's in. And so even this year, we've really been pushing to ask for help from them. And like Josh said, that kind of sucks. Like, the basketball program is buying basketballs out of their money that they're fundraising. And, you know, Josh and I talked a lot about this. And when I was in school, I remember our club fund, you know, taking us out for dinner. You know, like, hey, we're gonna take the basketball team out to do something kind of fun or whatever. And now they're fundraising for equipment, and that isn't great. You know, it's not what anybody really wants, I would say.
So when each sport takes a turn at the concession stand, what does that go to? It's
this
more
is-
like for that
Well,
does it go to?
yeah. Initially, like, so in the past, that had gone to their club fund account. But, you know, we're no longer doing that practice because, like, what does that really help? You know, every single club in our district wants us to not do the tax again, and I'm right there with them. It doesn't make sense for us to take the profiting, generating concession stand and give them the money to then take it back, you know, next summer, right? So, they're helping us out. There's two levers, like big levers that we can pull. The concession stand is probably the biggest one because we can't control the admission prices directly, but we can control the concession stand. So we're really trying to get help there. And I talked about it in my board report, but Darcy Fueling has been helping a ton. The Blizzard idea was hers. We're trying out different foods and things like that to hopefully and provide them at a reasonable price to incentivize people. Maybe having supper in the cafeteria with mac and cheese and pulled pork or something. So.
Are other districts experiencing the same thing?
Yes.
Unless you are putting hundreds of people in the stands every night. So, like in our conference, if you're Dyke, or AP, Grundy, or you're having high levels of success, yeah, you're in the same boat.
That's what makes me nervous about changing, making it higher. Because Dyke parents can do that, but at middle school kids that their parents maybe don't come,
Yeah.
or their brother, or their.
Yeah, that's the
I hope that
discussion.
doesn't happen.
Can you tell me the biggest top three club balances and what that 11.25% amounted to?
I can. Let me just pull it up here. All right, so biggest three clubs.
I can tell you
Biggest.
two of them would be DECA and FFA.
Yeah. There were DECA had an adjustment of $4,400. And Husky Mart had an adjustment of $3,566. The DJ Club had an adjustment of $1,694.
That's Husky Productions.
Yeah. Just trying to find the FFA club, but I pulled just the highest negative adjustment amounts to give you those numbers.
FFA had to be somewhere in that $8,000 range.
Yeah, FFA was, Yeah, they were negative, but then they bounced back up. There was a big adjustment at the end of FY23, but then their net adjustment was positive, and I can't remember exactly how that worked off the top of my head, but they were at a 10.3 adjustment negative, but then there was something that came in. It kind of straddled the year. So when we do this, it's like July 1, and they had some money come in that didn't get hit by the tax, so their net was positive. But yeah, they were hit, at a 10.3 clip. 10,393 was at the end of FY23, and then the FY24 adjustment actually bounced them back up by like $2,048. And without pulling the actual reports, Joe, I can't tell you exactly what happened right now, but I'd be happy to go through it with you.
That's close
So,
enough.
yeah.
How many clubs are underneath? These are the big ones. How many other clubs had some sort of assessment like this?
Oh,
26
yeah,
or something.
Yeah,
All of them are in the positive, so they would.
There's 21 that are just labeled club. But I feel like there were a couple more that got an adjustment as well that don't necessarily have club in the label of their account, but they're technically a club type account, so they got hit. Basically the only one that didn't was the band trip account, because that was all earmarked for that specific purpose, so it wasn't touched, but it wasn't taxed. So
I like to see solvency like you were discussing, but I also think these funds are sovereign to the clubs. And I think you're going to, if you start doing this a lot, it's not really going to incentivize for future fundraising.
Right, I 100% agree with that position. The other challenge on the fundraising side is sometimes the mechanisms to fundraise are unequitable in terms of the support of the district. An example, the baseball club fund gets marketing dollars for the marketing signs they hang on the outside fence of the baseball field. But they also put those on the football field and the track for the same agreement. Football doesn't see that money, and track doesn't see that money. Why not? The FFA gets the proceeds from the FFA land, from farming it. So they use it for ag class, and the district owns it and supports it, but they get the FFA club gets the proceeds from that. Why do they get it and nobody else does? And there are a lot of examples like this, and so there's some nuances there that a person could, if you wanted to make a position one way or another, could find and say, well, that's not fair. Why does it happen this way or that way? Even in the tax, these guys will tell you well, do we do based on participation? Do we do a percentage overall? Do we do it equitable so everybody gets the same thing? I can tell you that they pined over making a decision there to make it what would seem fair and equitable. And I think my position is that we don't ever want to do it again. And if we had the ability to end our year in a positive position and say we pay it back, I think we would. I don't know that we'll get there, but I agree. I think that money is sovereign in terms of the kids fundraised it should be spent on them. And I would go further and say that the money should be spent. If I'm writing a check or I'm supporting a club or my kid's fundraising money, it should not be sitting in a bank. It shouldn't be sitting at community bank earning interest. It needs to be spent by those kids doing something. And that's so this exercise has definitely shown a light on a lot of things that we need to have conversations about in terms of the finances of our general activities fund, which is all of this.
So if the clubs aren't spending on uniforms, what you mentioned is like going out to eat, what else does it need spent
I coach golf, right? So we fundraise every year. We do a fundraiser golf tournament. You know, if we need to purchase golf balls for the year, we'll do that. Otherwise, we've upgraded our equipment. When Cole and I first started, we had golf bags from the 80s, probably mid to mid 90s, call it. So we've been updating golf bags, getting new polos, push carts for the kids, like just like general. Extra equipment needs, like just trying to give our kids a good product to go out there and be comparable to other kids when they go to a golf meet. A lot of times it's going to camps, you know, hey, we're going to take the girls basketball team to Wartburg, you know, those sorts of costs are usually taken on by the club accounts.
Because you mentioned, like, if you're gonna fundraise, don't spend on uniforms, it's like, well, that's something that.
No, yeah. No.
It makes
in
sense.
In an ideal world, right, like we have a well-funded general activities fund, and you could do spaghetti works with your wrestling team after the end of the season or something, you know. Yeah. Did I answer the question fully there?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
spaced out for a second.
just, yeah, that makes sense. Feel like if you're not charging for transportation on some stuff, it's like, well, maybe you should. But I don't know how.
It does, and honestly, it does not help. We don't have to. We've fixed the general fund, like, and we have, and that's solvent, and we feel confident that we're there. So paying for transportation wouldn't help that orange line. It would keep the blue line from going up so far.
Yeah, I see where.
Right? So it doesn't really help the problem, but it's one of the reasons that the blue line has continued to grow is that we've removed the costs. Because I don't think it's fair that the kids should, I don't think kids should fundraise to have to pay for a bus to go do something.
Oh, right.
And obviously the tax was extremely unpopular. A lot of people were not happy with with having to do that. But you know, the other option is we cut programs that aren't profitable. You know, ultimately, like if golf isn't bringing in enough revenue to contribute back to make the orange line go up, then we got to get rid of it. I mean, or we support one another, right? Like a good night at football brings in like $3,000, $3,500. You know, that pays for our whole season right there. You know, so we rely on other activities to help fund us. You know, it's how it is, unfortunately. But if I could sell advertising on the golf course, you know, I surely would. But they probably wouldn't have something to say about that. Sorry, random idea of the night. You just put advertising on our polos. You could do that.
NASCAR.
Yes. Wonder Bread across the windshield.
Yes.
Some Talladega Nights fans here. I like that. That's cool. I like that.
So as a discussion item, and I think that we're kind of being vulnerable here. We're showing you what happened. We talked about a not popular decision that was made. I think the three of us that are leading the charge, I think you guys feel confident knowing that we don't want to have to go back and do that again. We want to fix it. It just takes a little time to fix it because we gotta stop the bleed, and then we gotta go back up the other direction. So it's gonna take a minute.
I have a question kind of off topic. The activity passes, are those still only, can you only purchase those when you're registering for school?
No, you can get them anytime.
You can, okay.
We will sell you a full price ticket, especially right now that the season's not over.
Or May.
Or
Especially at
yeah,
you could buy one for the next year.
high school office manages those.
Okay.
Or thoughts or questions? Any other feedback? Any other information you want? I attached the policy in here just so you guys are aware. This is the policy, so this is where this is kind of where the rubber hits the road for you guys. This small policy governs all of that, at least from your lens. And basically that Any deposit or discretionary depository will be dispersed and accounted for in accordance with the instructions issued by the superintendent. Which we hire a business manager and we hire an activities director to kind of oversee it and make those decisions. Like I said, I've not been super involved in the past, other than the high level stuff. But from my lens, things have been good. Really, until we start having conversations this summer and realize that we need to probably get more eyes on it.
What's your current fiscal year athletic shortfall?
We should be balanced.
It's dang close. We just had that conversation the other day.
Yep.
Or close to.
That's after the tax, right?
So starting from zero, like what we've spent this year from what we brought in this year, is that kind of what you're asking?
I guess how much, what I'm asking is how much did you borrow from the other clubs to become solvent?
Is it 60 or 55? Mike, somewhere 50 to 65. Right?
Yeah, we had
100 or 1,000?
60,000.
50 to 60,000. Sorry.
60,000.
Yes, across the board.
Okay.
To get to zero. And so far this year, we are staying at zero.
Okay, in this current fiscal year.
Correct.
So the tax was applied in the previous fiscal year. In this fiscal year
Yeah,
currently, we have not borrowed anything.
Accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's Jamie just hit on a big thing too. Like I hate to keep bringing this up, but like the cost of officials continues to go up. And when we sit down and do our evaluation of the budget for the next year, we're going off of last year's price or a cost, and we can't adjust for that. So we have to keep putting in. Well, so let's use football or cross country for example. They spent $2,500 last year. Well, we're going to expect that they're going to spend that again this year, but they're going to blow through that budget when they go to state. When other schools increase the fee to get in without really telling you until you get the bill, right? Like, so I mean, we're kind of set up for failure in terms of budgeting for that year, considering we have to base off the last year. So.
From a district lens, I think there's going to be some decisions and some changes made when it comes to some contractual spending with advertising and marketing. There's some conversations being had around district-wide or activities-wide fundraising to kind of like, everybody's got to be all in. We've made the change with the concession stand. So instead of like, oh, we'll pay you guys and put money in your club account to work concession stands and then we can take it back. Like, nope, you're working concession stand because it helps everybody. And it all goes to the general activities fund. So those decisions are all just this year. And I have no doubt that we can fix it. No doubt at all. It's just going to take a minute. Like I said, we're kind of now. I mean, if we're at the bottom, we're definitely. I mean, we're going up, for sure.
Is the price of officials set by the state, or is it?
No, we have a conference document that like we all as ADs within our conference kind of share what we pay, and we certainly don't pay the most, but we don't pay the least either.
Then like there's a shortage, so they might give an incentive to travel 2 hours to go.
Yeah. Are you start paying the least? What are you good at? What do you got? Okay, well, perfect. I'll train you. But I mean, officials talk a lot. I got an earful from an official the other night that they came and did our girls wrestling tournament. It's $200. He said, "Well, I got $250 at the last school," and I was like, "Stay there." I didn't say that, but like, I'm not paying you another $50. We can't. Like, we're already mid-tier in our conference with what we're paying.
You knew that going in.
What's that? Yes. Yeah.
Soccer officials are the worst with holding it over, like, because there's so few of them across the state. Like, they will barter with you with how much to get paid to get you to have them. It's wild west out there for officiating.
But if you want to be able to make $250 in a night, you can learn how to officiate wrestling, or it's getting the financial incentive to do those things is just getting better. So.
We already have to be good.
Well,
yes, you're correct.
You're right.
I like the armchair.
You're very good at it.
Certainly more comfortable.
I can hate doing
Well, I mean, I'll maybe end the conversation there with just saying if there's any ideas or future correspondence or future components that you want to talk about. You know, we typically try to do some type of like activities update for the presentation part of the board in June. It's a good time of year for us to do that. We can certainly bring it back up and bring more data back to show you like this is how we're finishing the year. And at that point, if it needs to drive or change decisions on what happens for the next fiscal year, that's a good time to do it. So if everybody's happy with that, we'd be happy to kind of report back with what's been changed or updated as we finish the fiscal year.
Do we wanna wait that long, or does the board wanna see that report? What the change is gonna be before we get to the end of the fiscal year? Cause you're gonna have a plan put together before we get into that.
That is true. We're tracking monthly.
Yeah.
So we can, after track concessions, so end of April, we will have a very good idea of how we're gonna finish the year. I mean, at that point, we'll know, and if there's any other changes that need to be made systems-wide, they would have been made by April. So anything from there, you know, April, May, or June would be fine.
So we can put that on the agenda and get that a little sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any other discussion on this? Okay, see, that's why I almost skipped over that.
That's why. That wasn't too bad.
We'll move on to consent agenda items.
One quick note on consent agenda before Bob entertains a motion. We discovered in reporting or printing out the narrative that there was a irregularity in the minutes from what were published. So they just so you know it was Michael fixed it, and what's in there now linked is accurate. So the special meeting or the
Organizational.
Yeah,
Organization.
so you can see it quick. There was just it was a name change.
Yep.
Was the only nuance there, and so it's been rectified. Just so everybody's aware that what you saw on Friday, if you looked at Friday, is not what's in there now. So I just wanted to point that out because this is what will be approved and officially in the record forever.
Members present.
Members present. That was it. Okay. So just a really small detail, but I wanted to point it out in case you're a hawk for reading the minutes.
Knowing nod.
Is there anything anyone would like to take out of the consent agenda? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second.
Becker made the motion and Joyce seconded to approve the consent agenda items as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor raise your hand. Motion passes. Move on to action items.
All right. Item A there is a bid from C Electric. So the lighting at the middle school has been bad for a couple of years. We've tried to rectify it, and we know that lighting is not great on our campus generally. And so C Electric is a subcontractor of Skyline doing the lighting in the parking lot. And we like the looks of the lights. We engaged with them. You're going to be on site in July. Is there a way for you to get us a bit of what it would look like to extend the lighting that you're doing here up the road and actually all the way to the middle school? And they said, yeah, we can do that. And they came down and kind of did a map and got it put together. And so it's kind of a non-traditional request that we bring to the board. Typically, you go out to something like this, you get quotes for, you get bids for, but because they're already on contract and they're already doing the work, there's savings and mobilization, and the work is all identical. And so the total cost of the project is $132,000. So this would get parked into the FY25 budget. Because we're saving a little bit of money in what we originally budgeted for the concrete project at the high school here, It's a nice addition to be able to continue that work all the way to the middle school and really make that whole drive well lit for football games, track meets, just driving. You guys drive home and I drive up that way and you'll notice how dark it is. So with that, I think it's a kind of a serendipitous thing for us to be able to do this. It's been a thorn in our side for a few years, so with that, I would recommend approval.
I move to approve the C electric bid.
You, Joy? Joe made the motion, Joy seconded to approve bid FC Electric. Add on to the lighting project. Any discussion? Not all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Motion passes. Course guide.
Mr. Hadley?
Sure. Just a couple of changes for next year. It's hard to think, right? 24, 25 course book, but here we are, and we'll start scheduling students really in February for all of next year, which is exciting. 8th graders will become freshmen already and start looking ahead. So, looking at beginner weightlifting, this is kind of a precursor to 0 hour. The instructors have just asked that this just be concurrently both semesters, just meaning take it back to back. In essence, you can't take it in the fall and not take it in the spring and then be eligible for 0 hour. We can get into the weeds on that one, but essentially this is the first year we've divided into kind of 3 different levels of weight training. We're really trying to increase the strength and agility of our athletes. And we offer a variety of PE throughout the day besides just weightlifting, but this is the first time we've differentiated weightlifting kind of to beginner and more of an advanced or intermediate, and then 0 hour being our advanced. Just looking to continue that, just strength and safety of athletes. Science course, this is a kind of a heavy lift that we actually started to move towards this year and will increase. By heavy, it's really more renaming, but we've removed cell biology and ecology, and we're simplifying things. I'm just a farm kid. There was way too many pathways. I love pathways, but like at the end of the day, they were all ending up at the same place in science. So you start with a full year of earth science your freshman year, and then you take a full year of biology your sophomore year, and then you can kind of start to divide up.
So earth science is a lot of standards. We were doing a disservice to those kids because you're trying to pack in 20 different things in a short amount of time. Freshmen, when they come up to the high school, pretty science intensive in that we have brand new labs, a lot of things to teach them how to use that equipment properly. It ate up a bulk of that time. So by allowing to go to a year, we'll fully cover earth science and teach those lab skills a little bit better. And the ecology, cell biology was a split we had copied from Waverly Shell Rock to kind of follow their progression.
We definitely didn't want to be like Waverly, so that's why I cut it.
And it worked really well when they changed the science standards 7 or 8 years ago now. But what we found is it honestly creates confusion for students. The what is covered in those classes won't change. The standards for biology stay the same, but they can kind of be categorized into 2 groups. And we thought it would give kids flexibility in their scheduling. It creates confusion. The kids don't necessarily care what the class is called. They know they're going to science. So going back to a full year of biology is just kind of a return to what I would say normal.
Simpler times, yeah. And they do, again, like the junior and senior year, you do begin to divide into like advanced, like physics and conceptual physics, and we do start to break that up for students who may be more science pathway, long-term, college-bound, things like that. So those options are still there, it just stays sequential until then. Probably most excited about this, actually, Mira just did an awesome story on this today. I think it came out today in ODR, so a little plug there for you can check it out. Yeah, I always have to buy drinks for my secretaries when I'm on the front page of the paper, so thank you. I'm a little poor today, but I didn't even know it was in there until they told me about them. Geometry and construction, and they call it GIC, and it's super exciting. Essentially, it blends geometry class, which is standard math class, with industrial arts, and those 2 will actually be co-taught next year. So the 2 kind of pairings, and then we'll also do an algebra and industrial arts. So if you ever get that question of like, Mr. Harley, why do I need to know this? Actually, you need to know this geometry because we're going to actually cut this angle in this class today that we've been talking about acute angles. And so we're actually going to cut one because we're building a product now and they actually built things like backboards. I think they did a class this summer. They went and did like a playhouse. So they will actually create true items in shop while actually doing math. So it'd be co-taught. Mrs. Tapper will teach the math portion, and then Mr. Sorensen will teach the actual construction part. So she'll teach geometry, he'll teach construction. They're going to co-teach it together. They'll be double blocked together. You learn both. And then we're going to do the same thing with algebra. So algebra, Mrs. Hadley and Mr. Castley will be paired together, and they'll be doing the same thing with algebra. But theirs is more of a business focus. So they'll actually create a business plan and actually sell a product, and they'll use the algebra part to determine, okay, we need to run this equation, determine how many, let's say they're printing t-shirts and they're going to do a t-shirt business, how many t-shirts do we need to order, how much ink do we need to have, and they'll actually use the algebra and practical application. So I'm super excited. There's only 3 schools in Iowa doing this right now. None of them as rural as we are. We'd be the smallest school, kind of the tip of the spear with it. But I think, I don't know, I think about all the kiddos and young people that I know, including my own 2 brothers who work in factories now and just amazing human beings that didn't like math, but like used it every day and didn't even realize it. Right? So like one of my brothers had to retake trig to get hired at Kinsey Manufacturing as a welder because he didn't pay attention in high school, didn't care about it. All of a sudden now he wants a job that pays $30 an hour. It matters. So we're trying to teach them how it matters right now in high school. And we're opening it to all students. So we're really hoping to get not just students that are interested in shop or not just kids that are interested in math, but both. And they can teach each other those skills and really kind of lean together while creating products. So probably the biggest difference, a little bit of logistics, scheduling. Anytime you block 2 periods together and say you can only take it here, and then increase the number, a little bit of challenge. But I think the juice is going to be worth the squeeze, and I'm really excited to see what this looks like. I think that was our last part of the big curriculum changes.
Yep.
Questions, I guess.
Thank you. I recommend approval. I'm excited about the GIS classes.
I'll make a motion to approve the OHS course guide.
I'll second.
Jordan made the motion and Taylor second to approve the course guide changes for 2024-25. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. On to item C, here's the last language update.
Yeah, so we had a good conduct policy review. We had a parent appeal it and gave Mr. Hadley and Mr. Kennan and myself all an opportunity to interact with policy. And I think by the time it was all said and done, in hindsight, we all kind of landed in different spots a little bit based on the language in the policy. I think we all knew what we wanted the policy to be, and we were all consistent in the application of it, but the language did not meet in that same triangle. And so in reviewing that, we said, we should probably sit down and make sure that we're all speaking the same language for what we believe this should be. And so, and you can see here, when we went through it, a lot of kind of changes in terms of listing, but when you actually read through them, the substance of it doesn't really change at all. Move community service under consequences. We went through and scrubbed the list to make sure that it was accurate to what we're currently being applied. Redefined the first consequences. So the consequence didn't actually change. We just added language to it so that it was completely understood. And you can see there, and this is a result of 4 different changes in principles in the last decade that all kind of had a hand in it. And then by the time you're done with it, it just kind of sometimes looks like, old Jello. And so this is a chance for us just to get it cleaned up. You don't like that analogy?
I don't know what old Jello looks like. Because Jello doesn't go
You've never seen old Jello? It's kind of still together, but
you eat it.
Okay.
Jello,
but it's not good.
In our house.
Anyhow, I digress. I won't use that analogy anymore. I think the new policy is very clean and applicable. and sequential. It's a good piece of policy, and if you have probably had a chance to review it, it's there. I'd recommend approval, and so instead of approving the whole handbook, we're approving this section of it, but it will actually, once you approve it, will go into the handbook, and the handbook will just be updated based on that. And that, I would recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve it, the high school handbook changes.
Eric, I made the motion, it's Jody, Jody second to approve the, News Plastic Language Handbook update. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Item D.
Here's an exciting one. We have budgeted for, so last year at this time, actually a little bit before, the board kind of put it, one of its priorities was updating our fleet. And so the time has come to order a 4-wheel drive all-terrain vehicle that holds 8 passengers, which is, in layman's terms, is either a Suburban, a Yukon, or a Ford Expedition. So we'll use the state bids. The Suburban is like $10,000 less than anything else. So by the time we take the RFP and we go through the state bidding process, which goes down to Carl Chevrolet in Ankeny, it'll be a new Suburban. So we basically pick a color. But it's, no. I don't think purple's an option. If it was,
I will fundraise to help pay for a purple Suburban.
It'll be white, Derek. Thank you. So we just need your approval for the RFP so that we can officially go order or put a bid in on a new 8-passenger 4-wheel drive vehicle.
RFP stands for
Request for proposal.
And what was the price?
I think the current bid price is like $47,000. That is a guess.
That doesn't sound bad
That's not really cheap.
It's state bid. It's like it's bare bones.
They knock them down.
Yeah, and it's a state. Yeah.
I'll approve the request for purchase or.
Proposal.
Proposal for a new Subaru for $47,000 approximately. I'll leave the price out of it. You said it wasn't exact.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's a state bid, so it has to be the lowest.
I'll second.
Joe made the motion and Joey seconded to approve the RFP for the purchase of the new Suburban. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. On to item E.
All right, so this one, there's not really a graphic or anything, but I would harken back to the ESSER days in explaining what we're doing here. So we received an approval on a grant for school safety money, and the grant proceeds come into the general fund, Fund 10, and we need to pay for physical plant and equipment using PEPL fund, which is Fund 36. So we paid for the expenses that we were reimbursed for, but we have to get board approval to move that money that we were reimbursed from the general fund over to PEPL. So that's what my request is here, is to move it in that amount. That's the exact amount to the penny.
Mike, was this a unique situation, or was this something we're going to get about $250,000 from this SLFRF grant? Should the board expect to see these more frequently?
Yes, this is phase one of the stuff. So this was getting a couple of doors up to snuff to put the key card reader on them. So there were 3 doors up at the middle school and 1 door at Parkside, Oline Online. So the grant's about $50,000 a building.
Yeah, I have no idea what that acronym stands for if you want to know. But this is the governor's school safety money, that $50,000 per building that we'll be using to upgrade safety equipment in all of our buildings. I'd recommend approval.
That's enough. I'll make the motion to approve a transfer of $22,015.76. RF school safety grant funds from the general fund to the capital fund.
I'll second.
Jody made the motion, and Shelby seconded, to move, funds from the general fund to the capital fund. Any other discussion? None, all those in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. Item F.
Okay, so this is one that you'll see every year about this time. This is our at-risk dropout prevention application. So, sorry about the format of it, but it's, yeah, oh boy, that's really coming in kind of funky there,
Yeah.
but.
You might check the cable, Derek.
But
the HDMI,
Okay.
just wiggle it. I don't know.
I was gonna say, I don't.
I'll think the TV's bad.
No. It's almost like the color settings are funky, like, but I have no idea how to do that, and everything looks ship-shape back here.
Ship. Well, it's for next year. It's based on enrollment that we certified in October, and it's based on a district cost per pupil of 76.41. So when you multiply that enrollment by that number, it's in there. You just can't see it. It equals $382,953. We always go for the max amount. We're on track to spend out the amount we were allotted this year, and we'll probably be. I mean, we'll definitely be on pace to spend it in 25 as well. So.
Dropout prevention, modifier level growth is kind of our at-risk pool. So that's we're allowed to spend money on school counselors, at-risk coordinators, alternative education programs. So a few names you're probably familiar with that get paid for out of this: Barb Winter, Courtney Vannon Hall, Barb Fogarty, Jen Shackleton, Leslie Uris, Tammy Tafola. All of our counselors have a cut of their salary taken from this fund. So specifically targeted to students that would be potentially at risk of dropping out is the purpose of the funds. And again, something we have to approve and send off to the state on an annual basis. So recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the SBRC at-risk dropout prevention modified supplemental funding for the maximum amount of $382,953. I'll second.
Erica made the motion, and Kevin seconded to approve the SRBC at-risk dropout prevention modified supplement funding. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes.
Can I do a quick aside, Bob?
Yes.
Just so you guys are aware, there's a really stupid law that got passed about 5 years ago, maybe a little more, 2018 I think, so it's more than 5 years, where boards had decided how much they wanted to capture in this fund, and they had to set a rate. And if you were fiscally responsible and not overspending, then your rate was maybe lower. You had not maximized it. And at that time, the legislature said, well, whatever your rate is, we're locking it out. You no longer have any authority to move that rate at all. And so that's been capped. And so if your rate was maxed out, you now have the capacity to max it out and go all the way to the roof, and you get a lot more funding. We had not maxed ours out. We were being fiscally responsible. And so ours has been capped. And so there is an effort from the Iowa Association of School Boards and the School Administrators of Iowa to lobby our legislators to basically go back and remove that capacity and basically say, school boards, you know best about your schools. If you want to have the authority to spend that money again, you now have that authority to spend that money. So you will hear me talking about this over the next probably 2 months as we get into the general assembly session, that we will push and talk to our legislators about this item specifically, because there's probably about $100,000 on the table here that we're not capturing, that we could if they would give us the authority to get it. So it's a weird thing. But it's an area that, if we can make sure we talk to the right people, hopefully it's something that can get legs, and go. I do know that, Chet Engel is one of our representatives, is in favor of this, so, hopefully we can keep pounding the pavement and get it done. Thank you.
On number G, board policy 8024.
Yep. So this policy is driven by changes in GASB, which is it's the governing body for the accounting principles that we have to abide by every year when we get audited. So this one, so the reason this got brought to you is when the auditors were going through our policy on capital assets, when the auditor was, she found a policy that she liked in terms of clarity versus the one that we have, which it's clear, but it's wordy, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is our policy that's crossed out. This is the policy that the auditor proposed. So it looks wordy at first, but then as you can see, there's a clear table here of the different asset classes and the amounts, and setting limits based on our district size, and what she has seen as common practice for a district our size. That the reason that we went into looking at this was because the GASB that I mentioned previously was talking about IT agreements. It's another acronym, but it's SBITA, and it's like a multi-year agreement on software and stuff like that. And what the accounting principles require is a lot more tracking, a lot more paperwork, unless you set kind of a reasonable limit on what you're looking at for those. So we could, with the software we use on like the one-on-one computers and such, we'd be looking at a lot of different contracts if we didn't kind of set some parameters and limits, and that's what this is doing. So it's basically setting some thresholds, putting it in writing, clarifying it, and then making us in compliance with the GASB regulation on it. So with that, that's what we're looking at.
Just a quick note on our board policy stuff for our new board members. Our board policy requires that we do 2 readings and 2 public meetings. So unless it's a legal change or requirement, something we have to do because of statutory rights or limits, then we do a first and a second reading. So this would actually qualify as doing a first and a second reading in one meeting, and so would the second one, actually, that we're going to talk about. But just in terms of the practice for you guys to see a policy, read through it, this is how we review it. If you want to make changes or suggestions, we can. You guys can change limits if you want. And then we approve it, and then we'll come back in January. It'll be in the consent agenda unless you want to talk about it again, in which case we would move it from the consent agenda down to the action items. So that's kind of our practice. And we just wanted to kind of model that for you guys so you could see the whole thing and a couple pretty safe policies. So, if there's any questions on it, we'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd recommend approval of Board Policy 802.4.
I move to accept board policy 802.4 as presented.
Joe made the motion and Jody second to approve board policy 802.4. Is there any discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. 502.4.
502.4. This is kind of a peculiar one. This last legislative session, the legislature passed House File 604, which required schools and school boards to have a student violent and violent incident policy at the board level and at the building levels. The Department of Education was really slow this year in reacting to that policy change. Normally, we would expect to have those things in July. We didn't get anything really until September or October. At that point, then we got the IESD policy. It was pretty vague. And it got to the point where we decided to wait until we had a new board, because it's going to be, you know, the new board's policy before we did anything. It gives a little bit of more time to review it. What we found was actually all of our policies at our building levels were fine. They matched up with the recommendation from the Department of Ed. There are a period of levels in all of our policies. They deal with the severity. They have all the different clauses in there for special ed, considering different circumstances on student violence. So they were all, they met all the code requirements and they met all the recommendations of the Department of Ed. The only thing we were missing was having a board level policy that regulated all that at the building level. So this policy does that. This comes from Iowa Association of School Boards. We reviewed it, and then we made sure that it actually went back kind of inversely. We reverse engineered this policy based off of our policies at our building level. So they all are a little bit different between the elementary, the middle, and the high school, but they all have tiers, and they all have sequential systems, and they give the, as this policy talks about, it gives the principals the authority within those. So it's not like you do this, this happens, you do this, this happens. It's more vague, but it has kind of branches to allow them to deal with the violence and the behavior as it comes up. The law requires that the school take the maturity of the student into effect. So this section specifically talks about that. And then what happens when those things are off campus and directly affect the good order and management of school welfare. Again, there's been some Supreme Court cases that have kind of touched this a little bit. So it's good actually that we have a board policy that specifically addresses this. That's a little bit more meat. And then there's the legal reference at the bottom so that we're all tight and compliant. So that, I'd recommend approval of first reading of 502.4.
I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of board policy 502.
You want to make a motion that Eric the second to approve first reading of board policy 502.4. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passes. On the district level reports.
Okay, I'll keep mine pretty short. The rules came out on the budget and hearings and what all we have to do there. ISFAS made a nice presentation on that it was last week. Basically, the bottom line is we need to have 2 public hearings. We used to have 1. And that all centers around a taxpayer statement that gets sent out on March 20th of 2024. And the earliest we can have our first public hearing is March 25th. And then we need to have another one. And then we need to finalize the budget and send that in by the end of April. So, I mean, yes, we have 15 extra days on a budget deadline. It used to be April 15th, but we also have to basically have our budget set for that first hearing in terms of tax dollars, because we can not go up from there. We have to bring you our max ask of tax dollars at that first hearing in March, and then take into consideration all your input on it, and then tweak it and bring it to you for the second public hearing in April. So, and we'll work on dates and all of that, but I just wanted to let you know it is on our radar. We're aware that there's new rules regarding that. And then otherwise, you know, January is just reconciling kind of what happened in first semester, getting bills out for open enrollment and stuff like that, and then getting W-2s and all kind of the payroll calendar year-end stuff knocked out. And thank you for the staff at central office and the tools we have to do that. Software makes it easy, and happy holidays. So thank you.
With our new board members, the brand new budget cycle should be a breeze, because you've never been through it before. Like, you don't know any different.
Is there a time period that has to be certain time between the first hearing and the second hearing?
Well, there's publication requirements just like before, so it's no, you know, when we publish it, we can't publish it. It's either more than 20 days before or less than 10 days into the hearing. So that kind of sets up some timelines in terms of the soonest we could have the second one.
Doesn't the one public hearing has to be its own meeting, I think.
Oh,
right.
Okay. I'm not sure on that, but the way we do board meetings, it probably would have to be because of the timing. Our March meeting is going to be before the March 25th, and our April 1 is going to be cutting it pretty tight to get our April 30th deadline hit, but we'll be okay. We could use the April meeting as our second public hearing, but we're going to probably have to schedule a meeting somewhere between the March board meeting and the April board meeting is essentially what it means. So.
Questions?
Yep.
In lieu of time, I'm not going to talk much here, other than letting the board know. Pretty much all of central office is taking personal vacation days between Christmas and New Year because of the way the holiday falls. Use a couple of vacation days and you end up getting the whole weekend to weekend off. And so we're just going to close central office. It's only a couple business days, and then we'll be back open. Someone will be here January 2nd. Myself personally, we're sticking around town. So if there's an emergency or something happens, I'll be able to respond. We'll be here. Actually, I think most of the staff's staying pretty close. I don't know if anybody's really traveling. So if there's something that we need, we're all able to be here to work or do what's necessary. Just so you guys have a heads up on that. Nothing else.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to district reports then. Mr. Kennan.
A couple things, just, I'm not gonna read through a bunch of names tonight, but our regular, quote unquote, regulars for basketball and wrestling have been awesome so far to start the year. When we have a home basketball game, we're looking at 8 to 12 people to just run scores, tables, shot clocks and things like that. Track wrestling, it's so clutch that we have a group of people that have committed to being at a bunch of them. I have a freshman boy this year, I'm already talking too long. He's been at every single home event so far this year, running shot clock or scoreboard, which is awesome. Very thankful for that. And then, like I said earlier, Darcy Fielding has really been getting after it and helping out with concession stand. That's been huge. Had our winter band and choir concerts. They went really, really well. Miss Fielding and Mr. McBride, Husky Productions, putting on great performances there. Basketball season, the boys are 1-5, but they've played some really, really tight games. Lost to Columbus the other night on a buzzer beater layup, so very easily could have a couple more wins just depending on how the night goes. Girls, the losses have come against some really good teams, and both teams won against Wapsie last Friday night, so that was pretty cool. Last Thursday, the boys wrestling got their first dual win of the season, and got some individuals posting some decent records there and doing well. Girls wrestling, this is from a while back, but the Dan Gable Donnybrook Invitational is a big deal. It's a 2-day tournament down in Coralville, and so we had a couple girls do really well there. Riley Hartman got 6th, and then Jocelyn Schwartz got 8th, and then Jalen Cron didn't place that at that tournament, but she's putting together a nice season at 15-7. 7th grade girls went undefeated in middle school basketball, which was pretty dang cool. The bowling team is looking to add some middle schoolers, inviting them to practice with them to try to grow their numbers because they're kind of struggling right now in terms of participation. This week is the first week, I think, where this is probably going to be a new thing for some of our spectators. 2 of the districts we're going to this week have bound ticketing, so you can purchase tickets with a card when you arrive there, or you can purchase them in advance. And that seems to be a direction that a lot of schools are going. So, that'll be something that we discuss probably at this level at some point here, either this year or next, and looking at and seeing if that's a direction that we want to go. So, just kind of a heads up on that. And then there were some state changes that are probably coming down the pipe in terms of contact dates and moving some seasons around. So, kind of keep your ear to the ground for that. It's been proposed, but nothing's been voted on yet. So just kind of a heads up there. And then, concessions are going well. I think the last few nights we've had really good profit, so that's been awesome. Awesome category, I guess. our choir went and performed for Dick Clapperidge's funeral, which was really a great way to honor him. Corey McBride and the OHS band hosted the Northeast Iowa Band Association Honor Band event, which is like, Jamie, correct me, like 800 kids or so.
At least.
It's huge.
Massive.
We use a bunch of the buildings, and that all went really, really well. So thanks to Mr. McBride for doing that. And then I've got the archery events or archery results from the last few weeks linked there. It's pretty long, but pretty cool. If you start scrolling through that at all, lots of top 5 finishes, which is cool because those archery tournaments, there's hundreds of kids competing. So good stuff. Any questions about any of that? Sorry, I'll go through it quick. But... All right.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Ms. Jacobs.
All right, in elementary world, we were just focused on surviving the next 4 days. It's a blast down in the elementary right now. So on the happy side of things, though, we've had, oh my gosh, that looks awful. You can't see the cute little cherubs.
I can see them fine on my computer. They look great.
Excellent. Well, go look, because the pictures are really adorable. Our students with different abilities got to go to Camp Courageous, if you're familiar with that. It's a camp for students with special needs, so they got to visit Santa, they sang karaoke and danced till their heart's content, and they just had a great time doing some crafts and getting to hang out with kids who look like them, which is super, super awesome. And the adults who went just had a blast and a really great time. And all of our students, PK through 4, got to partake in going to see Lyle Crocodile at the theater and have a drink and a popcorn donated to them. So thank you to the local businesses who made that happen. Came back and one of the 4th grade boys told me, I'm Lyle Crocodile the rest of the day, and just kept singing all afternoon. So it's a pretty fun time. On the healthy side of things, I just thought this was awesome. Mrs. Caitlin Kennan, we have 3 Mrs. Kennans if you did not know, at the elementary level alone, designed her door for the door decorating contest to be how the Grinch stole fitness, and designed a rolly game with the scooters all about how Grinches could steal all the different PE materials with pool noodles. So these 2 girls were the Grinches during that time, and the teams had to steal different PE supplies while rolling around on their scooters, and it was so much fun. If the Grinch tapped you with their pool noodle, you had to go off to the side and do 5 different exercises of your choosing. One kid was like, can I do 5 cartwheels? And then we were like, well, maybe not. Maybe not that. So I think they chose to do sit-ups instead. And then on the awesome side of things, we're working really hard on some of those attendance incentives. Just with everything going on right now, if your kid's sick, please keep them home. But also, we want them here as much as possible. So trying to encourage them with some fun stuff. Mrs. Freeze and I both got pied in the face. If a student had 94% or better attendance, their name was put into a drawing. They had perfect attendance. They got their name in twice. So we did that for every grade level. So you can see her getting pied at Little Husky, and all the videos are on Facebook. Feel free to go check them out. I got pied 4 times in the span of like 30 minutes at Wings Park. It was awesome. I don't think I can ever eat whipped cream again. So, yeah, it's a fun time. Holiday parties are in the afternoon on Friday if you want to join us.
Any questions? Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Not a lot this month. O2 elementary students were invited to do the movie with Wings. We had one of our O2 students come up from Cedar Rapids just to go to the movie, so they were very honored to be included. We can tell it's the end of the semester because we're getting a lot of phone calls again about transfers at the semester. We broke down the math. 1/3 of our students are either done with their semester or almost done with classes for this semester. It's one of the options being virtual is they're not waiting on a class to move on. They're able to keep moving. And we've had 10 students at the secondary level already move on to second semester. We do have a student who was 19 credits, needed 19 credits this year to be able to graduate on time. And she has knocked out 10 of those credits already this year on top of meeting all of her SDI meetings with her special ed teacher.
It's your birthday day.
And it's her birthday. Yes, oh, she's down, we didn't see her. It's just a testament to what hard work and perseverance can do for some of our kiddos who are struggling with credits or school's not their thing, but they know they want their diploma. There's a path to get into the end. And then Odyssey, we welcomed Adela Kime as a new para to us. She's replacing Miss Amanda. She's been a welcome addition. The kids have really enjoyed getting to know her. The other exciting thing that has come out of Odyssey is the amount of work that our Odyssey students are doing. When you can get behavior simmered down, they're able to focus on their academics. And the path forward is much smoother. For some of them, they have done 75% more work than what they did in the last 3 years combined when we pulled everything together. So exciting to see little changes making big differences for them.
Mrs. Adams doesn't know this, but I met with one of her teachers today, Jay, who is our math teacher. He lives in Appleton, Wisconsin. We employ him as a full-time math teacher.
He's amazing.
He is amazing, but he spent his whole time talking about how amazing Odyssey or O2 was and Miss Adams is. Out of COVID, he worked for Edgenuity, which is the company that we partner with to offer some of our online curriculum. And so he got to work with 20 other virtual schools in the state of Iowa, and he just continued to remark that O2 is hands and feet above everybody else in terms of their capacity and the services they're providing to kids. So.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you. We'll move on to Mr. Hurley.
All right, well, during the other reports here, I've noticed some droopy eyes and some yawns, so I'm trying to conserve as much time as possible. And I've been chastised at the admin level a little bit for my lengthy.
They've been good.
I'm gonna make it quick. I'll give you the clip notes. Okay. One thing I do want to follow up on, touch up on a little bit with our PBIS data. Last month, if you'll recall, referrals had gone up quite a bit in our building, and there were some questions about that. So, been working with the PBIS team, in particular Mr. Post. We've kind of gone back and looked at some historical data, and long story short, that's kind of been the trend. Kind of have the honeymoon phase in the September, and then in October to November timeframe, referrals kind of go up a little bit. Happy to report that they have gone down pretty significant amount from last month, 8.3 per day down to 6. So that's definitely a positive trend as far as referrals are. And again, that's kind of been what the historical data had been showing us anyway. But we have been talking as a team about ways to kind of attack that at the tier 1 level or all across the student population. So I did list some of the interventions that we've been doing. A new one that we're going to be implementing that we're excited about is called the Husky Buck Blast. We've got Husky Bucks as a positive incentive for students to exhibit good behavior and be recognized for that behavior on a rewards-based system. And we're going to, at periodic times, implement what's called the Blast. And basically, we give teachers extra Husky Bucks to get out to kind of promote those positive behaviors. If they see kids doing cool things, treating other kids with respect and things of that nature, and just kind of living the Husky way, the way we want them to, we're going to really promote getting those Husky Bucks out. So that's something we're pretty excited about. I do have the last 3 months of data on there and some images, so you can go ahead and look over those. We will be having our winter celebration on Friday, so we'll have homework makeup for students that have some late assignments, give them an opportunity that morning to hopefully get caught up or make some progress towards being caught up anyway. Students that do have all their work turned in will have activities to take part in the morning, and then the entire student body in the afternoon. There have been kids auditioning. We're going to have a variety show, which had been a thing in the past. I remember doing it when I was a kid in middle school, so pretty cool event the last day before school. So it's been around for a while, and we're bringing that back this year. So that'll be a fun activity on Friday.
Is there a staff performance?
I was just gonna ask that. Are you
There is.
headlining?
I don't want
Are
to
you
give too many things away. There's going to be a little cameo performance there by the PBIS team. So.
Appointment viewing.
Yes.
The 8th grade Courage Retreat, that happened on December 8th. Thank you to the high school for welcoming our 8th graders in. Youth Frontiers, every year they bring in staff that kind of conducts that for our 8th graders. It's a great day of self-reflection and kind of looking forward, goal setting as far as what they want to be and things they want to accomplish and how they want to treat the people that are around them, especially their classmates, moving forward. It just kind of builds a team building experience, I guess, for those students, as long as having that self-reflection time. So really a cool event. I was able to go up there and catch some of that day. And some students, you could tell, were pretty emotionally affected by some of that self-reflection, and you could see some good growth out of those students. So it was a pretty cool event there. That's funded through Northeast Iowa Charitable Foundation. SMOC kind of organizes that every year, so really a cool event. We appreciate the support in that. During November, there was a Sopember. Jackson was a big part of this. The student council did a hygiene product drive, and basically it was a kind of a competition between grade levels, healthy, fun competition. Between the 4 grade levels, 1,500 hygiene products were collected and then donated in turn to the Plentiful Pantry. So lots of individuals in our community. Great way for our students in the building to kind of give back to the community. So lots of people kind of benefiting from that drive there. So pretty cool event there. Band concert, that was on December 4th. We had a full house up there. That was our 6th through 8th grade bands that performed there. Mr. Miller did a nice job getting the students prepared. The people that were there were treated to a really good show. And we've got our choir concert coming up tomorrow for our 7th and 8th grade choirs. That'll be at the Williams Center, so excited about that. And I'll have update rundown on that next month. So yeah, some pretty cool, fun things going on in the middle of the Any questions?
I know, it's trouble today.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley.
Mr.
Hadley?
Yeah, it probably dovetails a lot to what Eric said, a lot of crossover here, but special recognition to Husky Production and Mr. McBride. If you haven't got a chance to see the Holiday Light Extravaganza, it's actually like really awesome. So this is all student led, and you kind of maybe heard Husky Productions mentioned as an activity. So it is 2 years ago we moved it into a class. Before it was always kind of a club. It's a class and a club now, but they just need more time, and that's increased participation as also the skill sets of the students there. So they go out, they do DJs services for local dances. They do the Independence Celebration every year. They do several events for right here at Oelwein. They're a mobile service, but also they do pretty much. This year, they've taken over all the Williams Center lighting. This is the first year they've been able to use a full light set to create kind of a music-themed light show. They've done this a couple years, for the last couple years. It's always been in the band room. This year, it's a full experience, and they open it up to the kids from 2 to 92, and it's open to the public too. So there's 2 more days of showings. I know it's in the middle of the day, but if you get a chance at all, just check it out. The kids are so stoked. In fact, I don't know if it's been mentioned yet, but the Iowa Board of Education, or Iowa Education Director Mackenzie Snow is here, and she came. This is one of the places she toured and talked to the kids during the class, and she was blown away that students actually get to do this. One of the students wants to go on and do lighting as a career, and so it's really been a fun thing. But probably my favorite thing is Derek and I went and sat in the first opening day, and they had I don't even know if it was pre-K or some daycare. They were littles, man, but they were bopping and they were going to town. It was awesome seeing them dancing in the aisles. It was amazing. Yeah, Derek was dancing too. I can't show you that footage. It's quarantine. But anyway, check it out. Awesome stuff. They do really great stuff. And these kids have actually started, so like tomorrow for the 7th grade and 8th, well, the middle school performance, it'll be high school students. You'll see them in the back. They're actually be running the sound and the lights. I don't know, I think it's a really awesome opportunity for kids, 15, 16 years old to run a whole production. Along with the band, Derek also mentioned the choir, that tons of stuff they've been doing, but also just even today, in the last couple of days, they've gone out and they've gone in local nursing homes and done Christmas caroling, and they did Old Time Christmas, just lots of involvement, and they're just all over the place. Darcy and Corey just run around relentlessly, and it's amazing to see how these kids get involved. Everything from singing the national anthem to just being right here. I think it's awesome. Kind of moving into our staff, all of us, and this is district-wide, but I just thought it was fun that we continued that work, that safety work that we've been talking about. So if you remember a month or so ago, we did our active response drill in the high school with several agencies. So we're continuing that work. Mr. Aaron will probably talk more about it, but we received a grant to put Stop the Bleed kits in every classroom. And so we did that as a full PD. And every staff member is now trained to use this, which hopefully it's like CPR, you never need it, but it feels sure nice. Myself being a parent, having kiddos, and my wife is a staff member in the district herself. Like, if anything happens to anybody, we have people that are familiar with life-saving procedures and have gone through this. I think it's great. And then finally, Mrs. Tapper is our new National Honor Society sponsor this year, and she did a blood drive with the National Honor Society students. Blood is a huge commodity right now. 49 viable units, but I thought this was really cool. 30 new donors, so really cool seeing a lot of those being students themselves, but community members as well. We had a couple of staff first-time donors. Kids just kind of got out and beat the streets and just really talk to people about donating blood and get involved. So just cool from top to bottom, seeing so much engagement and giving back to our community as the community also helps us. And any questions?
Questions? Thank you. We'll move on to discussion and comments by board members. David?
I got nothing.
Shelby? Joe? Taylor?
I do. I want to thank Derek and Josh for your refereeing this year. That was not my comment, was not geared toward you guys. That is super awesome that you guys are willing to help out with that shortage. So thank you.
Well, then Jamie does all of our middle school volleyball. I'm working on her and Tim to get on the official.
Yeah, I've been watching Ted Lasso, so I think I'm doing soccer guy.
Oh, soccer?
I just started Ted Lasso, so like I'm pretty
Seriously?
sure. Yeah, like just started it. You've been talking about it for years.
Yeah, believe me.
Josh does track. We're close. Like, we just need to find somebody to do baseball and softball. And like, ultimately, the goal is we have somebody that is like worst case scenario. Somebody can step in and be certified and ready to go because officials do cancel. But I like doing the middle school stuff because I get to see all the middle school games too. Like, it's win-win. But yeah, thanks.
Hey, good job. Or Bob, good job presiding over the meeting today.
And we put a
And that's
big
it.
one in front of you for the start here.
Right into the fire. Upcoming events, meetings.
The date is wrong. It is the 16th. So the January, February, and March meetings all fall on Tuesdays because they're all, January is MLK Day, so we meet on Tuesday. President's Day for February. And then we have spring break on the March meeting. So we meet on Tuesdays for the next 3 meetings. Also helps Joe go to class. And Jamie. Jamie's getting her firefighter 1 training, so.
I don't have to miss the Iowa-Minnesota wrestling meet now.
So. You're welcome.
It's a win-win-win all around, guys. Thank you.
And then the 25th, I'm gonna assume everybody wants to go, so who's not gonna go on the 25th? And then we can get everybody registered.
That's a Monday, right?
That's a Thursday.
Or Thursday.
It's a Thursday. Okay, so Joe's out.
And it's during like regular working hours?
No, it's like 5:30 to 8. They serve supper.
I would like to go, so I will email you to make sure I have daycare and everything.
Okay.
But for sure.
Good.
I would like to go.
Okay. We'll sign you up and if something else happens. And you mentioned you were gonna go? You're vacationing.
You put me down.
Okay. Alright, cool.
Oh, we need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Whoever made the motion and Eric seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We're adjourned. 9:22.
Not bad. Never this long. No, we put a lot out there. There was a lot we were holding off on, waiting for, so we can pace ourselves a little more. We'll spread things out a little bit.